Why are things heating up between Trump and the Fed? Right? This was already building before he won the election. It's even bigger after he won the election, right? Because their presidents often collide with the leader of the Fed. Right now, that's Jerome Powell, who actually was put into office by Trump, right? But you got to remember, this is a private company. Trump can't just fire Jerome Powell, although they're making cases of things that he'd have to do to make that happen. It wouldn't be a good look, and Powell's time or term is running out. I believe it's a 10-year term that started in 2016. That's getting ready to come to an end. So Trump coming into office, and if you go back to episode 1, the reason we started the very first podcast with debt to GDP is you can't talk about either one separately. I mean, you can, but you got to make the correlation between both. The debt is always going to go up. I mean, it's not like your household debt that you can pay down. The debt is always going to go up. There's not enough money on this earth in terms of dollars to pay down the national debt. So at this point, you're managing the national debt. All right. Trump knows this, and therefore his main agenda is to build the economy, right? Debt versus GDP. GDP is the economy, right? If the economy can outpace debt, then you're bringing down that ratio, which is 120% right now, which is not sustainable. And they're predicting by like 2050, roughly over the next 25 to 30 years, that it's going to surge at over 150%, which is going to cause us major problems in the country as far as being able to borrow. The interest rate will get so high that it's going to eat up most of our taxes. That's a major problem. Okay. Um, so that's that. So Trump wants to build the economy. This is why he got the big, beautiful bill passed, right? Um, keep taxes low, try to, you know, continue ramping up employment and jobs. Then you see immigration. He's trying to track down people that came across the border during Biden's administration and get them out. Okay, he's trying to fix the country, but in terms, really, it all comes down to the economy. Follow the money, right? A lot of times there's distractions along the way. I mean, you got all types of distractions right now. Epstein, MLK Jr., uh, just loads of distractions. But it really, if you keep yourself calm, it all comes down to the money. And Trump has got to get this economy going. Now, he did it in the first term. He leveled off the debt to GDP ratio, flatlined it really until COVID hit, and then all types of spending had to happen, and it destroyed uh, the 4-year period for him. So now Trump 2.0, trying to get the economy going, try to get the economy booming. Now, he can't do it necessarily as quickly as the first time because the first time they got the tax cuts done, and that was a boost. This time you're just trying to keep the tax cuts, right? And if they didn't pass the big, beautiful bill, regardless of all the stuff you've heard, it's going to destroy this and destroy. The fact of the matter is, your paycheck would have went down, okay? And all those concerns and stuff that you hear when you get your paycheck and it drops by $100 to $200, then you're going to start asking questions. Trump protected us from that, thank goodness, and got that thing passed. Is it perfect? No. But the bottom line is the thing passed. And there's a lot of big things coming up in terms of the economy with the Olympics and the World Cup. And, then you see Trump trying to do the UFC at the White House, although that's a minimal uh, economic bump, right? Because the UFC is traveling all the time anyway. But the World Cup and the Olympics will be a big boost to our economy. So Trump's main agenda: boost the economy, outpace GDP, bring down the debt to income ratio close to 100%, which is still not great. But right now you're at about 120, 121%. So this is why he's at odds with Powell, because he's got interest rates maintained low, or tax rates maintained low. He wants Powell and the Fed to lower interest rates, which are what, between 4 and 4.5% right now without looking. Okay. Um, which are still relatively low considering. But Trump wants them lower because he needs to boost this economy, and the Fed's worried about inflation. and there's butting heads there, and who knows how the Fed really feels about Trump and his administration anyway. They could drag this thing out for 4 years and, keep interest rates where they're at, which means the economy really can't get booming the way he wants. So what is he doing? How's he trying to boost things and create more income as well to not balance? You can try to balance the budget, but that's only going to last for so long. But to bring it closer to balancing the budget, enter tariffs, right? Tariffs is the way that you can bring more money into the country. And in terms of debt, again, we're not going to end the debt ever again without drastic measures. And then we'll face a depression, the likes of which we've never seen. Forget the Great Depression. You got to put another word great in front of it. So that's not going to happen. I mean, only one president really made it happen, right? Only one president made it happen. That president was Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson paid off the U.S. national debt in 1835 by aggressively reducing spending, selling off federal lands, okay, and generating revenue through, tariffs. He also eliminated the Second Bank of the United States, which had previously held government deposits, and distributed the surplus to the states. This marked the only time in U.S. history that the nation was completely debt-free. Okay, and that's not going to happen again, unless you get you think Trump is that drastic. Andrew Jackson was drastic. Lincoln with the greenbacks, drastic. Okay, total war with the banks, with the Fed. No Fed yet at that time, but total war with the banks. And then what happens is, they're just going to deflate the economy. I think the 25, 30 years after the Civil War, they took it all the way down to $6.70 per person. That's all the money that existed. You just eliminate the money and you create a depression, and people will be begging to be back in debt once again very quickly. That's just how it's gone through the time. So fast forward 100 and something years, we're deep in debt to where a lot of us are going to work and our income taxes are going straight to interest. I mean, that's why there's income tax, right? It's just a levy on your paycheck to guarantee the continued borrowing and continued debt. Now, I'm not advocating for anything. I'm just trying to make you understand that debt is going to continue, because we'd all have to come together and agree to go through 20 years of terrible stuff. I like my TV, I like my car, I like the couch, and all those things. I'm not giving all that up. Neither are you. So we're going to remain in debt. That's just the bottom line. So I try to make it sound that serious because this is why Trump has to get the economy moving. We can't continue to have the debt to income ratio, debt to GDP ratio going up and up and up and up and up, because eventually we're not going to be able to pay the interest, and we're not going to be able to continue borrowing. And then that's when you have a major, major problem. And we start losing those things anyway. So, and Trump's not the only one. You're going to have other presidents that do the same thing. And in fact, over the last, several presidents, I mean, the Democrats like Clinton did the best job of lowering the debt to GDP ratio. But Trump's going to try. And, you're going to have to spend. But you really need to look at the economy. That's the X factor. That's the independent variable, if you will, right? The dependent variable is the debt, because that thing is just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up. But if the debt is 36 trillion, you got to get the GDP from 30 to 36 trillion. That's what we talked about in episode 1. So that's why you have the banging of the heads between Trump and Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell, his first interest is the Federal Reserve and inflation. And who knows what else goes on behind the scenes? but they're not going to continue pumping money into the economy and cause inflation. But a lot of that inflation was because you're coming out of COVID and the economy roared back to life. So now we're several, you know, years removed from that, and now it's time to lower interest rates and get this economy booming, and then you can pull back later. And all it is the interest rates go up, then they level off, and then they come down. Then they level off and they go back up. And this is how the Federal Reserve keeps a balancing act over the country. And remember, this is a private entity. Federal sounds great, but it's not public, it's private. And therefore, they're going to do what they want to do. And I mean, listen, Trump. If you don't have control of something, there's going to be some kicking and screaming going on, and that's what's happening right now because Trump has no control over the Federal Reserve interest rates. So that's where we're at. Expect it to continue to be fun to watch, but really watch whether Trump can get this economy booming. The first sign of life. Remember, they were talking about recession, because we had a negative GDP in the first quarter, which Trump only had 2 out of 3 months in that first quarter. In Trump's first full quarter now, it went from negative to close to 3% GDP increase. That's with tariffs and all that. So as far as tariffs causing inflation and being a problem, no, it's pumped some money into the country. That's a good thing. Businesses loaded up on product, and then now in the second quarter, they're selling that product, and therefore we're seeing some changes. Now, how will it play out in the second half of the year? I mean, listen, the bottom line is if the Republicans want to win the midterms, they're going to have to boost this economy, and they need Trump to do his thing, and that's what he's trying to do. And right now it's headed in the right direction, and passing the bill, the big, beautiful bill, whether it's good or bad, was helpful because now that's in the past and we can start looking forward without that on our back. So that's where the country's at right now.